3 days after I handed control of my company to my son-in-law, he fired my own daughter. His accusation was simple. She had stolen $9,412 from the company. My daughter called me crying, but I was more than 4,000 miles away and believed the man I had trusted with everything I built. Then, 2 weeks later, I came home, and when I opened the company's financial records, I discovered something that made my hands shake. My daughter hadn't stolen the money. Someone had stolen it from her, and the person responsible was sitting in my office, wearing the suit I had bought him. My name is Richard Hale, and for 31 years, I built a small manufacturing company from the ground up. It wasn't a giant corporation. There were no skyscrapers with my name on them, but every paycheck, every contract, every late night, and every sacrifice belonged to that company. I started with an old warehouse and 6 employees. By the time I turned 63, we had nearly 70 people working for us. The company wasn't just my business, it was my life's work, and there was only one person I trusted enough to eventually take it over. My daughter, Megan. Megan had worked beside me since she was 24. She knew our customers, she knew our employees, she understood every department. Most importantly, she understood that the company wasn't simply about money, it was about people. Then she married Evan Brooks. At first, I liked Evan. He was confident, he spoke well, he always seemed to know exactly what to say. Whenever we discussed the future of the company, Evan would tell me, "Richard, you built something incredible. Megan and I will protect it." Those words made me feel safe. So when I decided to step away from daily management, I made a decision that I would later regret. I handed operational control to Evan, not because I loved him more than my daughter, because I thought he could help Megan carry the company into the future. Before I left for a long overseas trip, I sat across from both of them in my office. I remember looking at Megan and saying, "Take care of what your mother and I built." She smiled. "I will, Dad." I thought everything was going to be fine. I was wrong. 4 days after I left, my phone rang. It was Megan. Her voice sounded different. "Dad, Evan fired me." I actually laughed because I thought she was joking. "What?" "He fired me from the company." "Why?" There was silence. Then she whispered, "He says I stole $9,412. My heart dropped. "What are you talking about?" "He says money was transferred from a company account into a personal account." "Did you do it?" "Dad." She sounded devastated. "I would never steal from you." I wanted to believe her, but Evan had already sent me documents showing transactions. There were dates, amounts, bank references. Everything looked official. I was thousands of miles away. I couldn't walk into the office. I couldn't question the employees. I couldn't examine the computers myself. And that distance became Evan's greatest advantage. He told me Megan had become irresponsible. He claimed she had been secretly using company money. He even said, "I didn't want to embarrass her, Richard. I was protecting the business." I believed him. That was the part I would regret most. I called Megan that night. She was crying. "Dad, please believe me. I said something I wish I could take back. I need time to understand what happened." She went silent. Then she said, "Okay." That single word broke something between us. For the next 2 weeks, nobody called me. Not Megan, not Evan, not even my office manager. I assumed the situation had been handled. Then I came home. The moment I walked into the company building, I knew something was wrong. People avoided eye contact. The receptionist looked nervous. Several longtime employees suddenly became busy with paperwork. I walked directly toward my old office. The door was closed. I opened it. Evan was sitting behind my desk, the one I had used for 31 years. He stood up and smiled. "Richard, you're back." I looked around. "Where's Megan?" He shrugged. "She doesn't work here anymore." "I know that." I placed my suitcase beside the door. "I want to see the financial records." His smile disappeared for half a second. Then he recovered. "Of course." He opened a folder and pushed it toward me. "The evidence is all here." I looked at the documents. Something bothered me. Not the amount. Not even the accusation. The dates. I stared at one transaction. Then another. Then another. I asked, "Who approved these transfers?" Evan answered immediately. "Megan." "Show me?" He hesitated. "Show me the authorization." He opened another file. There was a digital approval. Megan's name appeared on the screen. I stared at it. Then I remembered something. Megan had been using a new security key for financial approvals. I had personally given it to her. But there was one problem. She had lost that security key 6 months earlier. She had told Evan, and Evan had promised to order her a replacement. I looked at him. "Where is the original security key?" He blinked. "I don't know." "Who had access to the replacement?" His face changed, just slightly. But I noticed. I had spent 31 years learning how to recognize trouble before it became disaster. I called our outside accountant. Send me every transaction involving that $9,412. She replied, Richard, there's something you should know. What? The $9,412 never went into Megan's personal account. My stomach tightened. Then where did it go? She said, give me 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, she sent me a spreadsheet. I opened it. The money had been divided into 3 smaller payments. All 3 went to a consulting company, a company I had never heard of. I searched the registration details, and then I saw the name of its owner, Evan Brooks. I didn't confront him immediately. Instead, I walked into the conference room and asked every department head to join me. Nobody knew why. I placed the spreadsheet on the table. This money was supposedly stolen by Megan. Nobody spoke. Then our senior accountant, Helen, slowly raised her hand. I knew something wasn't right. I looked at her. What do you mean? She swallowed. Mr. Hale, Megan asked me about those transactions before she was fired. Why didn't you tell me? Because Evan told everyone you had authorized him to restructure the company. The room went silent. Then Helen said something that changed everything. Megan wasn't the only person Evan removed. I looked around. Who else? She named 4 employees. All of them had questioned unusual financial transfers. Evan hadn't just fired Megan. He had been removing anyone who could challenge him. Now I understood. The $9,412 wasn't the crime. It was the excuse. Evan wanted my daughter out of the company. He wanted complete control, and he thought I was too far away to stop him. That evening, I called Megan. She answered after several rings. Dad. Her voice was cautious. I said, I owe you an apology. She didn't answer. I should have believed you. Still silence. Then she whispered, you didn't. I know. You didn't even come home. I know. Her voice cracked. I thought my own father had chosen him over me. I closed my eyes. I was wrong. She started crying. So did I. But apologies weren't enough. I needed evidence. The next morning, I hired an independent forensic accountant and an attorney. We examined everything. Within 48 hours, the picture became clear. Evan had created a consulting company months before I handed him control. Payments from my company had slowly been redirected there. The $9,412 was simply the amount he needed to make Megan look guilty. But there was more. He had altered internal records to make it appear that Megan authorized the transfers. He thought nobody would notice. He was wrong. I called Evan into my office. He walked in confidently. Richard, what's going on? I placed a folder on the table. Sit down, he said. I pushed the first document toward him. His own company's registration. Then the bank records. Then the authorization logs. His face went pale. He looked at me. Richard, I can explain, I said. I don't want an explanation. I pushed another document toward him. I want the truth. He said nothing. Finally, he whispered, I was trying to build something for the future. By stealing from the company. I wasn't stealing. You created a company in your own name and redirected company money into it. He looked down. Then I said the sentence he never expected. You're fired. His head snapped up. You can't do that. I smiled coldly. You're forgetting something. I leaned forward. I may have handed you management, but I never handed you ownership. The room went silent. I had already reversed the authority I had given him. Megan was reinstated. The employees who had been unfairly dismissed were invited back, and Evan was removed from every company account. But I wasn't finished. I wanted him to understand exactly what he had almost destroyed. So I called a company meeting. Everyone gathered in the conference room. Megan stood beside me. I looked at the employees and said, for 2 weeks, I believed in accusation against my own daughter. I paused, and that mistake almost cost me the person who deserved my trust the most. I turned toward Megan. I'm sorry. She hugged me. For the first time in weeks, she smiled. Then I faced the employees. The company will not be run through fear anymore. Everyone applauded, but the biggest surprise came later. Evan had expected me to quietly remove him. Instead, the evidence was turned over to the appropriate authorities and professionals. The investigation would determine what consequences followed. I wasn't interested in destroying him. I was interested in protecting what my daughter and I had built. Months later, I officially transferred leadership of the company to Megan. This time, I didn't choose someone because they sounded impressive. I chose the person who had spent years proving she could be trusted. One evening, Megan and I sat in my old office. She looked at the desk and smiled. Remember when you thought I stole $9,412? I looked at her. I remember. She laughed softly. That was an expensive mistake. I smiled. No. I looked out through the office window. The money wasn't the expensive part. She understood. The $9,412 was eventually recovered. But that wasn't the real victory. The real victory was discovering that the daughter I had almost doubted was innocent, and the man I had trusted completely had been manipulating everyone around him. I learned something that year that I will never forget. Distance can make lies look like truth, and sometimes the person standing closest to you isn't the person you should trust. If this story taught you anything, let it be this. Never let someone else's confidence become stronger than the evidence in front of you. Because when I finally came home, I didn't just recover my company, I recovered my relationship with my daughter, and that was worth far more than $9,412.